Molini, and welcome to yet another episode of Conversations with Langosi. Now, this is the news commentary section where we will be offering insightful commentary and exploring various perspectives on the stories that shape our world. Today, we have an interesting story to discuss. Renowned South African activist and former radio presenter NgizweMchunu has recently been cleared of all charges laid against him. Strap in because we're diving deep into the background, context, and implications of this case. Let's get started. Before we delve in, it is reported that jubilation and chants erupted at the Randburg Magistrates Court after former Ukhozi FM presenter NgizweMchunu was found not guilty this last Friday. Within the court's walls, among his supporters were the former president, Ubaba Amabuto, and the leader of Areta, Mr. Carl Niehaus. Outside were the rest of the Amabuto who have been in support of him since this mess of a case began. It is reported that he had 400 supporters present. Now, after giving detailed findings about the three charges, which also included inciting violence during the 2021 July unrest and contravention of the Disaster Management Act during COVID-19, the magistrate cleared NgizweMchunu of all charges. Okay, let's continue. Now, NgizweMchunu came into the limelight for his he came into the limelight for being vocal about his views with regards to the Zuma-led government in South Africa. Now, he is naturally a charismatic figure, but also we can't shy away from the fact that he originally gained popularity as a radio presenter on Ukhozi FM, the largest radio station in the country. Now, with his influence, he became an activist and a prominent voice for the disadvantaged and marginalized communities. People felt a sense of familiarity when NgizweMchunu was a concern. There was literally that one thing that just made him stand out from the rest of the radio presenters at that time. He also has a very interesting sense of humor, if you ask me. I am a person that believes in him. One thing about NgizweMchunu, guys, ubaba we ayikhale azikhale. Literally, he speaks his truth, he stands his ground, and he does it without fear. He does it without looking or seeking for people to come and commend him for doing so. And for me, there's just something about him that hasn't changed over the years. Ever since he broke out into the limelight till today, he is still that charismatic, funny person that is very vocal. You know, others call him a ticking time bomb. I don't know. I'd like to meet him one day. I really think he's an interesting character, and I obviously do respect people that are just vocal about their views and they do not care about what people are going to say, because at the end of the day, they are exercising their freedom of expression. But also another thing about the Zulu Nation, guys. It's either you're vocal, you're unapologetic, and you are authentically you, or umthengisi. And in most cases, I hardly come across abathengisi that side, you know? Yeah, no, okay. Literally. Let's just get into it. Now we're going to talk about possibilities of his arrest actually being politically motivated, seeing how things have actually turned out. Now, let us also not forget, guys, when all of that was happening, I think Utatu Zigalala was still the premier of KZN at that time, and there was a little spat between him and Ngizwe. So I think when we come back to viewing it as a politically motivated arrest, it low-key makes sense, because you also look at how things were at that time, you know how the situation, the environment actually was in KZN at that time. And then you have Premier Zikalala under the New Dawn and the New Dawn's administration. That time it's the New Dawn that is taking Obaba to jail. You get it. Do you get it, guys? Do you get it? So more than anything, yes, it looks like it was a politically motivated arrest. Because there's quite a number of people that actually took it personal. And I am not making this up. I think there are videos of the spat between Datu Zigalala and Ngizwe as well, you know. And also, I do not think, you know, I think that was a mistake that Ubab Zigalala made there on his end. And getting to when you are down, never show your enemies, sorry, yay, I am down, I'm down there like I'm sinking. And when he came for Ngizwe during this time, it looked more personal than it did, like, you know, it would like it would have, you know, as the premier maybe calling him out. It was as if it was more personal, and it was as if he had his own personal agenda, you know, which was quite weird because, again, you are a person that advocates for living in a democratic country. You are a premier that actually speaks on democracy because, again, you have a very diverse population in KZN. But then again, here you are trying to silence people. I mean, it wasn't only NgizweMchunu that seemed to have gotten on Ubab Zigalala's bad side at the time. Remember the child that got a slap that they did not ask for? Do we remember? Okay, before I make this about Ubab Zigalala, because it isn't, let us continue. Ngendaba kaNgizwe. Now, was it politically motivated? Was it? Yes, it was, guys. I say this because before the former president of South Africa, Utatu Zuma's arrest and imprisonment, Ngizwe was seen on guard outside the former president's Nkandla homestead, insisting that the former president would not go to jail. Shortly after the imprisonment of the former president, due to charges of contempt of court, protests began, looting began, and violence swept across the country, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. As a prominent critic of the Zuma administration, Mchunu found himself at the forefront of these events, with allegations that he played a role in inciting violence. He was arrested under the Rioters Assemblies Act, a law that criminalizes incitement to public violence. However, he vehemently denied these allegations and claimed that his arrests were politically motivated. It's also very interesting how he was arrested for inciting violence, whereas the New Dawnist, you know, the man behind the New Dawn, has videos. There's literally footage of him encouraging vigilantism, which then led to the justification of what we would now call the Phoenix Massacre. So that's just, you know, like, it's just, we're side eyeing because the energy, guys, I like, you know what? But yeah, no. NgizweMchunu's case was definitely politically motivated. And he was on the receiving end of Liswazi. You know, Mabakshange Swazi. It was him guy who was on the receiving end because, again, he was out here standing on Baba's side instead of agreeing with this notion, or actually, you know, just moving with this thing, Yahore, Baba must be arrested. So, more than anything, Ungizwe, Ubethelwe, Uba, he stood for Ungamalala when people were not supposed to be doing that, apparently. You know, which is quite interesting because, again, what happened to freedom of speech? What happened to democracy in South Africa? And also, I think Ngizwe was born in Nkandla. So I think Kakulu, he was coming out as a son fighting for their father. And I really do strongly believe that the state handled it in Indlela, literally. The energy that they put in when it came to arresting NgizweMchunu and Carl Niehaus and whosoever else that was arrested during that time for speaking out against the former president's arrest, that energy it could have gone elsewhere. I mean, we are all following the stats of the South African police services right now, and it's far from being cute. So them also losing this case is it's an eye opener. It's supposed to show all of us that they like chasing the wrong people, whereas their focus should be on pressing issues, on actual issues, not personal issues that are more political and personal than they are about the well-being of South African citizens at large, as they claimed. Because how was he inciting violence when their faith was out here encouraging vigilantism? And we literally watched the death toll rise. Families lost relatives. Mothers lost their sons. Wives lost their husbands. Sisters lost their brothers. Yeah, guys, families lost their loved ones. And it's just weird how the wrong people were jailed. Hey. Now, to understand the legal aspects of the case against NgizweMchunu, we turned to legal expert Ms. Mpali, who kindly agreed to share her insights. Now, according to Ms. M, the Riotous Assemblies Act can be used to prosecute individuals accused of inciting violence. However, the burden of proof is on the state to demonstrate that Mchunu directly incited violence or advocated for it in his public statements. Mchunu's defense team, on the other hand, argued that his comments were merely expressions of frustration and anger at the government's handling of social and economic issues. They maintain that his speech was protected under the freedom of speech laws, and that any interpretation of them as incitement to violence is unfounded. Magistrate Ramano Sadike said he was giving Ngizwe the benefit of the doubt after he found that the word aikale or azkale did not incite any violence or encourage people to be violent. Sadike said the word could have different meanings and that the state witness was not an expert in that isiZulu language. The fact that he wanted to quell the violence by calling a media briefing was reasonably and possibly true, said Sadike. However, Sadike said although some of the comments that Ngizwe made during the press briefing were wrong, they were not a criminal offense. Now, if he was to sue the state, his case would likely delve into the complex realm of constitutional rights, making it a landmark case for freedom of expression in South Africa. To make sense of the political implications surrounding this case, it is alleged that this lawsuit, if he could ever potentially pursue one, could actually have broader consequences beyond Mchunu's personal fate. With South Africa grappling with a fragile democracy and high levels of inequality, the case could significantly influence the boundaries of political activism in the country. The outcome of this supposed lawsuit, should he continue, would potentially determine whether dissenters can express their grievances without fearing legal repercussions, or whether the government can utilize legislation to stifle opposition. It raises questions about the state's balance between maintaining social order and upholding the constitutional rights of its citizens. Now, how would it impact our society if he were to sue the state? Well, beyond the legal and political dimensions, it's important to examine the wider societal impacts of the case. Mchunu's supporters argue that his arrest and subsequent lawsuit exemplify a growing trend of criminalizing dissent and stifling opposition that would definitely be the talk of the town. And if the court ruled in favor of the state, guys, finding Mchunu guilty, it could have set a precedent for suppressing freedom of expression in South Africa. And I think that's something that we are not, like, as it, we don't talk about it enough. But what would have happened if the court came out and they were like, okay, you're guilty, you know, um, also, it is just a rumor that he is planning on suing the state. I do not think he would, because I think Mr. Mchunu was interviewed. One of the media houses did state that he was complaining about the amount of money that he actually spent. He also expressed his appreciation and gratitude, obviously, to those that assisted him when it came to funding this fight again, for him defending himself here. But I really don't think he'd go and waste money again to sue the state. Already, this is it's an embarrassment for Kale and his cohorts, whatever it is he calls them, because you know what, like it is an embarrassment. So I do not think NgizweMchunu will actually sue the state. I think him winning this is already enough. And I mean, going to court, guys, from 2021 until now, having, his festive, like a lot of things were just not make sure at that time. You can imagine what goes on in his head, the energy, the environment, the stress and stuff. So I wouldn't think he'd want to go back to that or over again and experience it so as to now sue the state. I believe that he can actually make back the money that that went into fighting for his freedom here, and he can move from there. We obviously are viewing people with weird eyes now from a different lens, especially after this. And I mean, seeing Obaba coming out to support him, guys, like that's just a lot on its own. So I really don't think Babu Ngizwe is going to, or he would be willing to sue the state. But if he were, I mean, I did mention to you how, things could go and how it could impact our society. But that is also just a possibility should he pursue this thing of suing the state, which I don't think he will. And I know Bandi around Angogo. The thing is, I'm still stuck on Ubaba. Baba was there, guys, to support Ngizwe. There are even videos of Ubaba singing Betona. He's there singing, guys, and the mood is just him and Mr. Niehaus. And I must say this one thing about Carl Niehaus: if Carl Niehaus is for you, he will be for you, Shem, until I cheeky. So Areta definitely has a fighter there, and I'm hoping that we can actually talk about the rise of these new political parties, especially towards obviously the build-up WIMA elections, 2024 elections. I have a feeling next year's elections are going to be very interesting, especially after what is happening and what we are witnessing right now. I mean, NgizweMchunu, like I said, he has a sense of humor, but there's always an element of truth in his jokes. So him coming out here to say when he becomes president, I'm not laughing. I'm just saying, for me, that's just a sign. And I think Kongi must fasten its seatbelt in KZN, because more than anything, if we're talking about Kongi in KZN, it's not make sure anymore. I don't think they could pull through without Ubaba. And also, what is going to happen should Baba decide to sit down or retire even from his activism? What are they gonna do? Because at this point, it's as if Nabobazi spoiled brats, nyana. Allegedly. Don't come for me. I'm just Lalit. I'm speaking my truth here. NgizweMchunu winning. It's a huge slap on Sihle's face. It's a huge slap on Begitele's face and his mouth. And it's like they've taped duct tape, because again, people were happy with the fact that they made arrests and they forgot about looking or gathering the very same proof. They forgot about that. And so arresting people without enough evidence or proof is a waste of time. It's a waste of the state's resources. It's a waste of our time as a people. And you're also wasting the time of those that you wrongfully arrested, because again, you could have gone to arrest people that you still need to arrest, but you tiptoeing around it. Hey, yazini mara, yazini mara. Hey, So, guys, with that being said, Mchunu's win could embolden activists to speak out against perceived injustices without fear of retaliation. It could also serve as a reminder to the government that it must prioritize addressing underlying issues that contribute to social unrest before going on a barking spree, jailing those who openly call them out on their failures. That concludes today's video. Remember, the goal is not just to inform, but to inspire critical thinking and foster a diverse exchange of ideas. I appreciate the time you've spent with me today and look forward to bringing you more engaging content in future episodes. As always, be sure to follow us, Conversations with Lankosi, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and also our YouTube channel, Chonga. You subscribe, you follow or you subscribe, light the notification bell so that you do not miss out on any new episodes, right? And then please do visit our website, Lankosi Writes, and share your thoughts and feedback. Enkosini for listening to the Conversations with Lankosi podcast. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay empowered.